Professor X Wild Reign begins in the Marvel Universe. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 41. 200 million. This number stimulates the nerves of all people. However, Creel continued, the remuneration we pay you will be credited to your account in a legal way. In short, laundered money. It is known how horrible the tax department of Eagle Sauce is. Even if you engage in black trade, you have to pay taxes on the sale of flour. The cash they grabbed from the bank and could only be kept in cash. If you want to deposit into an account, you need a series of money laundering operations. Go to the black market to find the organization responsible for money laundering. At the very least, 30% will be deducted. What Creel promised them was the legal income after paying taxes. Such generous conditions. They were all moved. 300 million. Toombs said as he stared into Creel's eyes. Creel shook his head. Dude, you're a little greedy, 250 million, no more. That's $25,500, what do you want to do? Toombs asked. Hit Broadway on Christmas Eve. As for the target, I'll tell you then. It is necessary to say that we have more power than you think. Within 2 days, $100 million will arrive on your account. If you want to run away with this money, we will find all the betrayers, and many of them will pay for your bad decisions. After speaking, Creel sat back in the car. 3 black Escalades left in a long way. Pay $100 million first. Such handwriting and self-confidence show that their power is not small. Creel sat in the co-pilot. Above the back seat, it wasn't what Toombs thought, what big guys. It's a pair of young siblings. Of course. Creel would never dare to have any contempt, because they were young. He saw Wanda Maximoff with his own eyes, using that red magic to squeeze a tank into an iron ball. This effeminate little girl. Definitely a weapon of mass destruction. Now, this weapon of mass destruction has been sent to New York. If not for the rise of Hydra. Baron Strack is definitely reluctant to contribute the two. That's right. Hydra rises, Alexander Pierce goes undercover in S.H.I.E.L.D., thus secretly manipulating the Insight plan. To ensure that the Insight program runs smoothly, they need to remove all possible obstacles. For example, Iron Man Stark. For example, in New York, most of Nick Fury's energy is restrained. Because the power of Hydra cannot be used. Lest Fury's dog nose smell something unusual. This time the dispatch had almost nothing to do with Hydra. Brothers and sisters of Maximoff. Their parents were in Kosovia and were killed by Stark Industries weapons. A total of 10 elite soldiers. Is Killian's last legacy in this world, the only remaining desperate virus warrior. He, Absorber, Carl Creel. The only Hydra who knows the whole plan. The Tums gang. The criminals who robbed the banks of Queens. As for the next stop, of course, it is New York Underground Emperor Gene He. Creel, will Stark really show up on Broadway on Christmas Eve? Wanda, who was still immature, asked. Creel nodded. Of course, on the first Christmas Eve of New York's reconstruction, City Hall will put on a big show on Broadway. The Avengers Iron Man, the chairman of Stark Industries, Tony Stark will definitely be invited to attend. Not only him, but the mayor of New York, the president of the House, and the capital predators on Wall Street will participate. Come to think of it, this is definitely an attack that is enough to sensationalize the world after the alien invasion. And you will be the protagonists of this grand show, and you will give Stark a perfect curtain call in front of the world. Creel said that future to Wanda. This is a kind of psychological hint to people. Sure enough. Wanda is looking forward to that day. The spotlight of all eyes. In the biggest theater on Broadway, he will take out the arms dealer, Tony Stark. Just like Hamlet who completes his revenge. It's Christmas Eve. The orchestra of the State Imperial University was eligible to participate in this year's Christmas Eve Broadway performance, so rehearsals were frequent. Therefore, although Gwen has winter vacation, she still has little time. She is the drummer of the band, a very important role. Compared to Gwen's busyness, Charles is very relaxed. Either accompany Jessica, or accompany Clarice and Katie, 2 little girls shopping. Or go back to school, to accompany Sky. Day by day there was nothing to do, so he was ready to find something to do. Thought about it for a while. Charles founded 2 companies, one to develop mobile games, and the other, to incubate short video platforms. It doesn't matter if you can make money or not, how much money you make. Mainly the 3A masterpieces on the market, the fun is finished. I want to play a dozen real-time battles. Because of the current time node, mobile games and short videos are not yet taken seriously. The end game is the mainstream of the game industry. As for short videos, this concept has not appeared. The whole eagle sauce played the most, or Twitter. I don't understand the fun of dancing with my little sister, so I can only figure it out myself. Charles said to himself. Episode 42. In eagle sauce, as long as there is money, there is nothing that cannot be done. Especially New York, the economic and financial center. Charles spent Osborne's money, a large amount of money fell down, and a large number of high-end talents came to hand over their resumes. Soon, the two companies had the corresponding prototypes. Hell's Kitchen. Charles's psychiatric clinic, he just sent away a strange one. Why is it strange? A guy who lives in Hell's Kitchen actually told Charles about his insecurity. Boy. Charles thought they had moved out of the area. The main thing is a tenacious perseverance, right? What Charles can teach him about this situation is to quickly move out of Hell's Kitchen. There is no sense of security in this place. Unless you can be as fierce as yourself. After all, the boss of the Hammerhead gang, Hammerhead, was also shot with a black gun not long ago. Isn't there anyone in this place to consult reliable psychological problems? Charles stirred the coffee in the cup and complained. Charles, reliable psychological problems are nothing more than work, life and love. Most people in Hell's Kitchen are either gangsters or have intersections with gangsters. So they shouldn't have a good problem. Gwen pushed the door in with a pink bag. Because he and Charles are already very familiar. When there were no patients in the house, Gwen always pushed the door straight in. As for Jessica, whether there are patients or not, she has always come and gone casually. Of course. The people of Hell's Kitchen are very reasonable. He never complained about Charles because Jessica disturbed his counseling. Gwen, didn't you rehearse the band today? Tonight is Christmas Eve, and the orchestra teacher asked us to relax and cope with the evening performance. Gwen threw herself on the soft couch. Her light body jumped. Oh, is tonight Christmas Eve? Charles was stunned. Deep down, he is not particularly concerned about Western festivals. So I almost forgot. In the West, Christmas is just as important as the Lunar New Year in the East. Christmas Eve is like Chinese New Year's Eve. Last year, the Zatori invaded New York. People haven't come out of their grief for a long time. So last Christmas, the town hall was hastily done. This year is the first Christmas of the New York redevelopment, so it will be extraordinarily grand. More than the festival itself. There are also people who overcome their grief and re-embrace the vision of a new future. As a result, City Hall held a show at the largest theater in Broadway. No, Charles, you even forgot the days I performed. Gwen huffed and raised his small pink fist to Charles in protest. I just forgot that tonight was Christmas Eve. Charles spread his hands. So how are you going to spend Christmas Eve this year? Do you want to go to my performance? Gwen leaned forward and asked. Talking to Charles on the phone last night, she knew Jessica had recently gone out. Since Jessica is not there. Of course, he is going to launch a fierce offensive. The Eastern powers have a saying that the opportunity must not be lost, and the time will not come. Okay, I'll see it later in the evening. Oi. Gwen let out a small cheer in her heart. She had rehearsed for so long, if Charles couldn't see what it was interesting. It was supposed to invite Charles and Jessica to go together. But if Jessica went, she couldn't be alone with Charles on Christmas Eve. Yes. When the performance was over, Gwen prepared other small projects. Anyway, it must be the most memorable Christmas Eve. Before leaving, Gwen handed the invitation to Charles and said, Charles, see you at the Mage Theater in the evening, don't be late. Even if it's the end of the world, it's never late. Charles joked. At night, Broadway is full of traffic and splendor. Starting from Battery Park, the street runs from south to north across Manhattan Island, covering a total length of more than 25 kilometers. There are dozens of theaters on both sides of the street, as well as bars, entertainment centers, and other places. It is the best place for leisure and entertainment in New York. The Theater of Major has a long history of more than 100 years. After several changes, it is still the largest theater on Broadway. George Stacy arrived early on the scene. As New York police chief, he is responsible for the safety of tonight's show. Because there are too many big shots tonight. Mayor of New York, President of the House of New York's, Chairman of Stark Industries, and Tony Stark of Iron Man, Norman Osborn, Wall Street's capital predators in the financial world. It is no exaggeration. If a shell lands in the theater of Made tonight, the economy and finance of Eagle Sauce will encounter an unprecedented earthquake. Richard, you take a few people in charge of the theater's power distribution room. Carl, watch the back door of the theater. No one is allowed to enter except the participants and staff tonight. While arranging it, George saw Gwen getting out of the taxi in the distance. Because there are too many big people's vehicles tonight, in order to avoid traffic jams, taxis can only stop at most 200 meters from the Meg Theater. Gwen trotted over and saw George standing outside the theater as well. "Hey Dad, why are you here?" Gwen greeted George. "The police department is responsible for the safety of tonight's performance, and I don't know why, I feel a little uneasy. By the way, if you are participating in the show, you have to enter through the back door," George said. Gwen nodded. "I'll go later, wait here for a friend first." "Huh?" It may be all the old father's natural skills, George smelled an unusual feeling at once. Wait for friends? It can't be a man. Episode 43. Gwen stood beside George, her tall figure, blonde hair, and straight legs, like a beautiful landscape outside the Meg Theater. There are many high-class celebrities who got the invitation tonight, but no one has the purity and agility of a girl like Gwen. Her beauty is unique. There were already several people who saw Gwen, their eyes flashed with obsession, and when they took the opportunity to talk with George, they showed their excellent conversation and aristocratic temperament. George was polite to them. After all, they are all young talents in New York, young prosecutors in the limelight, and young and promising private equity managers who manage billions of dollars. It's better to be friends with good people than the simple college students in her school. This is very good for her future. Of course. George just wanted to be friends. If it's too far, forget it. One is that Gwen is only 19 years old this year, far from the time to talk about marriage. Secondly, he was also a police chief in New York. Worried about Gwen's future? Seriously, George isn't like most Eagle Sauce parents with little anxiety or worry. Gwen showed little interest in these people. From the way she kept looking at her watch, anyone with a discerning eye could see that Gwen was waiting for someone, and that he was a person who was important to her. At 1945, Charles arrived here by car. "Charles, here." Gwen, who was standing at the door of the theater, waved at Charles. At this time, there are more and more big people present, and George needs to maintain a mechanical smile and shake hands with these people frequently. However, he still paid attention to his daughter out of the corner of his eye. When Charles was seen, the brow is a twist. Haven't seen it. He was sure he had never seen Charles in newspaper news, or in authoritative or non-authoritative inventories like the New York 10 Outstanding Youths. This shows that Charles's identity is relatively general. In addition, he looks a lot older than Gwen. In addition to being very handsome. There is no merit. Chief Stacy, you just got a little distracted." Stephen Strange withdrew George's sore hand and said. As the top neurosurgeon in all Eagle Sauce, his hands are heavily insured, and if George breaks them, it will be bad. He followed George's gaze and saw that it was Gwen and Charles flirting intimately. Although I'm not a big advocate of student romance, I want to say that they look like a good match. George almost fainted by Strange. Christine, who was invited to watch the performance with Strange, put her hand on her forehead, and she felt that Strange was suitable for staying in the operating room. After dragging Strange into the theater, Christine said, "Stephen, what are you talking about? He's the police chief of New York." "Of course I know, and I'm still the #1 neurosurgeon," the proud Stephen said. In addition to making more money as a top lawyer or doctor in Eagle Sauce, their social status is also very, very high. After Gwen left, George also turned and left the theater gate. He was going to have a good chat with this guy who had cheated on his little padded jacket. Right at this moment, Norman Osborn arrived at the scene, and countless flashes from the media were aimed at him. Because the lizard weirdo who was recently captured turned out to be Professor Kirk Connors. Professor Connors is the leader of a biologics research and development program at Osborn for several years. The media wanted to ask Norman. Connors' potion to turn into a lizard has nothing to do with Osborn. Norman did not answer to the media. He accidentally saw Charles, and suddenly a strange feeling surged in his heart, feeling that Charles had the same as the Holy Lord. Feel. It's like a very strange intuition. Because he had never seen the entity of the Holy Lord. But he saw Charles. Consider Charles Holy Lord. This is actually the reason for the ideological seal. It is a surrender that comes from the blood instinct. Thereupon, Norman Osborn walked up to Charles and chatted with Charles very politely for a while. When the media noticed the scene, they all felt incredible. You must know Norman Osborn, who created Osborn's business empire. It is one of the largest group companies in New York. Even if Stark Industries' market capitalization is above the Osborn. However, this still does not affect Norman's senior position in the business world. Norman has been a shallow man over the years. New York doesn't know how many young entrepreneurs who want to visit their homes, but are turned away. But today, Norman actually showed his appreciation for a young man. There are even actions that make people feel that Norman is currying favor with young people. Of course, it would be outrageous to say curry favor, even in the face of Stark. Norman is qualified to maintain the posture of his predecessors. Therefore, the media is more willing to believe that it is a visual deviation caused by the lighting, or the angle. Episode 44. George also saw this scene. He couldn't help but pause, to disturb Norman's conversation with the young man? Forget it, let's wait. To be appreciated by Norman Osborn, maybe there is still some ability. George said in his heart. Charles did not enter the theater with Norman because Black Widow Natasha arrived in an Audi TT. Natasha can handle any occasion. She wore a black evening gown, showing her grace and luxury. As the only woman in the Avengers, Natasha's popularity is still good. And the citizens of New York also liked Natasha very much. Facing the media flash, Natasha responded with a smile. She turned her head and communicated with Tony through the headset. Tony, you know I don't like this kind of occasion, but for your sake, give me a car, and spend a boring Christmas Eve. Natasha, I have a lot of cars in my garage, but you chose a TT. Tony, wearing an Iron Man suit, said. Because I'm not as high profile as you. Natasha said while smiling. Originally, it was Iron Man Tony who was invited to watch the show tonight. But a rampage mutant appeared in Florida. The mutant is said to call himself Red Tank. Has the power of the Hulk. Tony traveled to Florida to test improved anti-Hulk armor. And tonight's Christmas Eve performance. It has extraordinary significance for the citizens of New York. Without a single Avenger present, it would have looked very ugly. Natasha had to come up. Oh, do you think that's high profile? That's just my daily life. Tony pouted. Natasha, who was about to continue to scare Tony, saw Charles smile at her, and her face couldn't help but freeze. Tony, I met someone, hang up first. Since Charles smiled at himself. Natasha also fell generously towards Charles. Professor Xavier, I didn't expect to meet on such an occasion. Call me Charles, I'll listen. Gwen said something about you asking her for help. It was actually Gwen who told herself as a ghost spider. Natasha chuckled in her heart. She looked at Charles puzzled. I always feel that Charles has a sense of déjà vu of an old father who is interested in his daughter's bad girlfriend. But people's own father is on the other side. I mean, if Gwen wants to be a free street hero, I totally agree. But if Fury wants her to enter the Avengers, be bound by various rules like you, and become a professional tool for maintaining the world, I will make S.H.I.E.L.D. look good. Charles's words were very sharp. Natasha didn't know how to answer for a moment. The show is about to start, I hope you will relay my words to Fury. After Charles turned and entered the theater, Natasha woke up like a dream. Take a deep breath. Natasha smiled like nothing had happened. But he thought about Charles's words in his heart. A professional tool for preserving the world? It's really apt. It feels like Fury is using them as tools. One task after another was assigned to them. Yet those secrets of S.H.I.E.L.D. But it was all hidden in Fury's head. There are a lot of meaningless tasks, all part of Fury's grand plan, and Fury will never tell them what that plan is. George on the side felt incredible. There are great doubts about Charles's identity. Who the hell is this person? It is understandable that Charles can get Osborn's appreciation. But why can he still talk to Black Widow Natasha? That's the Avengers. It was he who went to Natasha, and Natasha would probably just be out of procedure to communicate with him about the case. There is nothing more to say beyond the facts of the case. The huge theater of Meg was packed at this time. After a generous speech from the mayor of New York, the theatrical performance officially began. The first performance is a stage play about the alien invasion. Charles did not appreciate this kind of singing and dancing stage play, his fingers lightly tapped his temples, and the power of telepathy came directly to Xavier's Genius Youth School. Teachers and students at the school are celebrating Christmas Eve together. There is a Christmas tree in the school hall, and all kinds of gifts are piled up under the Christmas tree, and the whole school is decorated with a very festive color. Follow the custom of Christmas Eve. Everyone will sing Christmas songs together. Then comes the joyful gift opening session. These gifts were basically prepared by Clarice and Katie, and of course, Charles and Arolo also helped prepare some. On the side of the Meg Theater, after the opera, there is a hymn sung by the choir of the New York church. Right at this moment. Suddenly, there was a loud bang directly above the stage. Bang! It was like being hit by a heavy cannonball, boulders were scattered, and the choir below screamed in fright. However, these scattered stones did not fall. The red magic was like a pervasive mist of light, lifting all these stones so that they did not fall on the choir. Wanda slowly fell from the sky. She had some difficulty controlling the stones. At this time, Wanda had just awakened her ability, and her use of chaos magic was obviously not proficient enough. Episode 45. Wanda Maximoff? Charles saw Wanda falling from the sky, Wanda wearing a black tube skirt and a small signature red leather jacket on the upper body. Boy. How did Wanda show up in New York? Charles was a little confused. Wanda and her brother Quicksilver are mutants, Baron Strack, one of the leaders of the Hydra, who uses Loki's scepter, the Mind Gem, to activate their abilities. After the Insight Plan, the Avengers realized the existence of Hydra and began to eliminate Hydra around the world. Baron Strack frees Wanda and Quicksilver. That is, the plot of Avengers 2. Not only the Wanda brothers and sisters, but also the desperate virus warrior and the vulture Tums. What a big deal. Charles sensed multiple psychic fluctuations. Black Widow Natasha has pulled out her weapon tied to her thigh at the moment of the mutation to deal with the impending battle. She looked at Charles in the audience. But he found that Charles was indifferent and looked like he didn't want to interfere. Damn it. What did Fury do to make Charles, who once created the X-Men, not care about anything? Natasha complained to Fury in her heart. Even she didn't find it, and subtly, she changed her opinion of Charles. Charles was not an evil man at all. Like a spring, S.H.I.E.L.D. pressed the X-Men too hard, and it just bottomed out. Miss, what are you? The mayor of New York got up and said. Wanda scanned the front row of seats and did not find Iron Man. Where is Stark? He's not here, he's not showing up tonight. The legislator said. It seems to be looking for Stark, then it has nothing to do with them. But before he could rejoice, he saw a man walk up to the stage and said, Wanda, it doesn't matter if Stark isn't here, if we arrest the people on the list, he will definitely throw himself into the net to find the door. And her. Wanda points to Pepper. Tony and Pepper's relationship has not yet been officially announced. However, the two often appear together in front of the media. That kind of special relationship between men and women can't hide Wanda, who is also a woman, and she can see that Pepper is Stark's lover. Absorber Creel said it was fine. He issued an order to the group of Tombs, and according to the plan, the Vulture Tombs was in charge of the demolition theater and air support. His men arrested people according to the list. Desperate virus warriors against New York detectives. Now the places in and out of the Mage Theater have been blocked by his people. Just when it comes to arresting people. Natasha suddenly twisted a man with his Atari technology weapon with her legs. The next moment, the two rolled into the crowd. Natasha took the initiative and stunned the man with a heavy punch. Right at this moment, Spider-Gwen swung the spider silk, not knowing where to rush into the field. Her goal is to absorb the human Creel. The thief captures the king first. Gwen obviously understands this. Otherwise, she and Black Widow Natasha would not have won. Especially the girl who looked like a witch. Definitely a ruthless character. However, Gwen still underestimated the absorber Creel. The lower limit of absorbing people is very low and the upper limit is very high. His strength depends on the material he absorbs for transformation. I saw him transformed into Edmund alloy material. Boom. Gwen kicked him, only to make him stagger. What? Gwen was stunned, this person turned into silver-white metal in an instant. What's the situation? Without waiting for her to react, what greeted her was a heavy punch that absorbed people. Gwen was shot far away. She used spider silk to stabilize her figure so that she would not smash on the audience. Dare to hit my Gwen. Charles was angry, and his grandmother could endure it, but his uncle couldn't. Originally, he wants to put on a bad spot as a bystander, and the system reward will be treated as a Christmas gift. The problem Gwen was beaten, this rotten reward is not enough. I don't lack this reward. Thinking of this, Charles used the Black Shadow Core. Inside the black shadow of the theater, shadow-like ninja soldiers continue to emerge. The audience was frightened and screamed. It is to see the absorbers of the terrorist attack, Creel, Scarlet Witch and others, they are not so afraid. Because there are too many ninja soldiers. In a short while, hundreds or thousands of them pop up. Wanda turned her head to look at the absorber, but the absorber shook his head. This is not our people. Needless to say, Wanda already knew, and there were already shadow ninjas who began to attack them. The Shadow Ninja of the Black Shadow Corps uses a variety of weapons, and the flexibility is very high, and there are almost no shortcomings. Vulture Tum's men, after a single blast of several Shadow Ninjas. The thrown shuriken was directly nailed. Others were stabbed in the throat by ninja knives. It is the desperate virus warriors who are slashed by one ninja knife after another, and the damage they constantly inflict breaks through the limit of what their bodies can withstand. In the end, the body is like molten slurry, constantly melting and dripping until it turns into a pool of hot substance. When these desperate virus warriors are dying, they also want to die with the Shadow Ninja. As everyone knows, the Shadow Ninja is just a black shadow. Even if they can take a few Shadow Ninjas with them. It had no effect on Charles's vast spiritual power. Wanda constantly unleashes magical attacks, but there is no particularly good way to deal with the endless Shadow Ninjas. Unless it's with stronger magic. But in that case, I am afraid that this theater will not be able to hold up, and many people will die because of it. She just wanted to kill Tony Stark. I don't want to implicate so many innocent people. Episode 46. On the other side, Spider-Gwen saw a Shadow Ninja popping up. It's really like the Cherry Blossom Ninja in a movie and television drama. Her mind couldn't turn for a moment. Natasha said to her, "Leave the Metal Man alone, let's find a way to deal with that witch together." In terms of combat experience, Natasha is richer than Gwen. Absorbing the human creel, this kind of thing, just looks quite strong. The biggest actual threat is the witch who can attack a wide range and does not know where the upper limit is. Oh. Spider-Gwen answered absent-mindedly. Because she was afraid that something would happen to Charles. After the Shadow Ninja appeared, the theater was completely chaotic. Everyone ran out in a panic. Papa George followed the mayor and seemed to be fine. But she didn't see Charles. Holy Lord, that person must be the Holy Lord. Norman Osborn, who was escorted away by bodyguards, shouted in his heart. If it wasn't for the Holy Lord, how to explain the Shadow Ninja who appeared? This is the dependent of the Holy Lord. Only the Holy Lord has such great and unfathomable power. Wanda, I'll deal with the Shadow Ninja. A voice suddenly appeared in Wanda's ears. It was Quicksilver Pietro. Pietro holds a tungsten steel dagger. He has already seen the shortcomings of the Shadow Ninja, just like the assassin in the game, typical attack high defense low. No, the defense is very low. As long as the damage is almost the same, even if it is not fatal, it can make the Shadow Ninja disappear into a black shadow again. Pietro is nicknamed Quicksilver, and his mutant ability is speed. When the speed of Quicksilver starts, the whole world seems to have slowed down. Wanda turned to look at him. However, in the world of Quicksilver, this action is slowed down hundreds or thousands of times. When you turn your head, the hair is clearly visible. Quicksilver walked up to a Shadow Ninja and slashed the dagger down its throat, followed by the second, third, fourth. The Shadow Ninja who was hit still maintained an offensive posture. Because the speed of Quicksilver has almost reached another dimension. So, in the world of Quicksilver, the speed at which the Shadow Ninja shattered and disappeared was far less fast than the speed at which he reaped. Suddenly, Quicksilver opened his eyes wide, and he saw a light man whose speed was not inferior to him, speeding towards him. It was as if in this stagnant world, only the two of them were unaffected. He wanted to use a dagger against the light man. Who knew that the light man flew a kick, and the speed was in the limit speed, and I don't know how many times faster. So much so that Quicksilver can only see the afterimage. Bang! This is Charles's lightspeed kick developed using Shining Fruit, not a rookie like Quicksilver, who can only initially use his own speed. This kick kicked Quicksilver back onto the stage. Of course, Charles gathered most of his strength, or he would have kicked Quicksilver to death. His physical fitness is not much stronger than ordinary people. The type that can be sent away with a shuttle bullet. Then, everyone heard the sound of Quicksilver crashing into people. Immediately after that, he found that the Shadow Ninja in the audience had all dissipated. Wanda exclaimed. Then he noticed the person who sent his brother flying, a light man condensed with yellow light. At this time, there are a total of 3 forces on the stage. Wanda, absorbing people Creel and others. Natasha and Gwen the Spider form an alliance. Charles who became the Man of Light. Sir, we can join forces to save everyone. Natasha tells Charles that Black Widow never gives up the opportunity to woo allies. She was still not sure whether the light people in the field were friends or foes. So, she used the phrase to save everyone. Instead of defeating these scoundrels. Anytime. There's always the right thing to do. This is the wisdom of Black Widow Natasha. Charles ignored her, and at the moment Charles was thinking about something. What to do with Wanda and Quicksilver? It is impossible for S.H.I.E.L.D. to catch it. After all, Wanda is so beautiful and in such a good shape that it can be developed. Besides, chaos magic is a power of the same level as the power of the Phoenix. At the very least, it's a multiverse level. Of course, take it by your side. If you can't stop the Sentinel plan, you need to unite all powerful forces against the Sentinel. This is a backhand. As for where to send Wanda and Quicksilver first? Charles thought for a moment and thought that it should be placed in Xavier Genius Jr. School first. While he was thinking, Scorpion Guggen pounced from somewhere and backstabbed him. Guggen's scorpion suit is light and dexterous. The joints are all sharp long spines. This suit is very suitable for close combat, and I saw Scorpion Guggen stab Charles in the back more than a dozen times in succession. It feels like a piece of light penetrating. Not an entity? Scorpion Guggen was stunned. Charles showed no mercy to the guy who sneaked up on him, and he threw Guggen to the ground, stretched out his 5 fingers, and a yellow laser burst out from the fingertips. Swish! Laser shots like Gatling heavy firepower. The stage floor was full of smoke and dust. When Charles stopped, not to mention Guggen, his suit was basically bombarded into slag. Guggen, probably already gasified. Seeing such a brutal sight of the Lightman, Spider-Gwen subconsciously distanced himself from him. Quicksilver, who woke up slowly, was almost frightened and fainted again. Fortunately, Hikaru just kicked him. Rao is so. Quicksilver also felt that he had broken at least 2 ribs. Episode 47. Charles didn't bother to deal with Tomb's men, or the desperate virus warriors. His targets are Wanda and Quicksilver. However, Charles is not so good at talking to those who stand in his way. Absorber Creel rushed up without fear of death. With a lightspeed kick, followed by a laser ray, the powerful impact knocked him from the stage to the backstage of the theater. However, the absorber quickly crawled out of the ruins. The strength of the Edmund alloy made Charles's attack impossible to deal actual damage. Anyway, lightspeed kicking and laser light will not work. It's like one thing, one thing. Black Shadow Core makes Wanda difficult to parry, even if the opponent is the Hulk. It is estimated that it can be consumed by relying on the tactics of the Sea of People. The ability of Quicksilver, complete the Black Shadow Core. Charles uses the Shining Fruit. The natural fruit is immune to physical damage, plus terrifying speed and ranged attacks. Iron Man, Team America, Black Panther type of players, no matter how many they come, they will abuse casually. Just a pair of high defense types. It's stretched. Of course. If Charles really wants to kill the Absorber Creel, there is a way. A. Telepathic, casually erases his consciousness. Or the Avada curse. It is also possible. At this time, Charles did not use these 2 abilities, and he had more convenient means. Metal control. I saw Charles press his hand to the ground. The absorber feels like being attracted by the strong magnetism of the ground, constantly falling downward. 1 basement level. 2nd basement floor. After the 2nd basement floor, it continues down. Boom boom. I don't know how deep I was pressed into the ground by Charles before stopping. After solving the absorber, Charles turns into a light to avoid Wanda's magic, and he takes Wanda and Quicksilver out of the theater together. Where no one was, a phantom transfiguration was used. Go straight to the underground base of Xavier's gifted junior school. I'll trouble you to stay in this place first. Charles transforms from light to entity, and at the same time a telepathic power descends on Wanda and Quicksilver. I want them to fall asleep. Right at this moment. A terrifying flame appeared in Jean Grey's mind. Inside the flames it looked like a black phoenix. The flames became more and more fierce. The Black Phoenix led the neck to scream. Jean only felt like she was going into boundless darkness. She panicked and hid in the bathroom and locked herself inside. Everything in the bathroom is in a superposition of disintegration and recovery due to the influence of the piano's ability. Charles looked up. Sensing another powerful energy in the academy, there were faint signs of awakening. This is Jean. His face froze. Boy. Phoenix Force Riot, right? The power of the Phoenix, the power of chaos, and the power of the Goblin are one of the 3 ancient forces of the universe. And the power of the Phoenix is the most primitive life and emotional force in the universe. When Jean awakens this power, she causes great damage, causing her parents to die in the power. This is the reason why Jean gave birth to the 2nd Black Phoenix personality. The Black Phoenix personality is most in line with the original emotional power of the Phoenix power. It made the Dark Phoenix more powerful than ever. If left to the Black Phoenix to destroy, There will be incalculable consequences. So, Charles once sealed the Dark Phoenix personality with a psychic cage. At this moment, when the power of the Phoenix senses the power of chaos, the instinct of the most primordial power of the universe, let it ignite fighting spirit. It's like one mountain doesn't allow two tigers. With the outbreak of the power of the Phoenix, the Black Phoenix personality gradually awakened. The mental cage set by Charles also began to show signs of collapse. This is why I can't put my eggs in one basket. After Charles figured out the reason, he was a little speechless. Because the two forces will instinctively confront. The power of chaos is good to say. Wanda can control her power. The power of the Phoenix will revive the Black Phoenix personality, and it will be an absolute disaster. Even if it is not completely the power of the Phoenix, it can also reach the level of a single universe. On the other hand, looking at his own strength, even if he gets energy absorption, shining fruit, Voldemort template, through swinging. At best, it is the quasi-heavenly father level. Not as old as Odin or Gui. Face the monolithic universe-level Black Phoenix. There is no chance of winning at all. Charles had to transfer the sleeping Wanda and Quicksilver again and put them in the psychological clinic first. Broadway, Mage Theater. The Vulture Tums is tightly wrapped in cobwebs. In addition to Wanda and Quicksilver, who were taken by Charles, only Creel, the Absorber, escaped arrest. Dozens of meters underground, he transformed himself into the same material as dirt. This is more conducive to digging holes in the soil. When S.H.I.E.L.D. took control of the scene and tried to dig the Absorber Creel out of the soil, he found that he had already run. That's the next story. Gwen changed back into her performance clothes, and she saw Charles outside, and quickly threw herself into Charles's arms. "Charles, it's great that you're okay," Gwen said happily. "I forgot that the relationship between the two has not yet reached this point." Mainly when the crowd fled the theater, there was a stampede and things like being injured by stray bullets. She didn't see Charles, and she was inevitably worried. "Gwen, what's wrong with your face?" Charles reached out and touched the bruise on Gwen's cheek, which had been beaten by Creel, the Absorber. A superhuman physique is strong. Changed to a normal person, the bones are broken. Gwen did not resist the hand handed over by Charles, and said aggrievedly, "When I ran away in the background, I tripped and fell." Next to the ambulance, George put the Dean of the House of Representatives, who was almost 80 years old, into the ambulance. The old Dean was not injured. But maybe for reasons of fear, pulled. It's literally pulling. If this is known by the media, I don't know what it will be said about. Therefore, the ambulance had to pull him away and send him directly home. George turned his head to look at his daughter in the crowd, and when he found that his daughter and Charles were not my daughter, he felt so sad. His little padded jacket doesn't care about himself anymore. Episode 48. Next. The attack on the New York Mage Theater spread throughout Eagle Sauce. On Christmas Eve, the theater filled with thousands of powerful and elite people in the upper class of New York was terrorized, and it is strange that this kind of thing can be hidden. At least more than 50 casualties. One of the most important is the predators who shorted the Asian economy in the 90s. Fortunately, the stock market is closed on Christmas. However, it is foreseeable that the first trading day after the holiday will be very bleak. I haven't been in New York for a day, and it's such a big mess. However, I still want to say, is New York abandoned by God? Tony returns to Stark Tower, and the robotic arm helps him remove his suit. Pepper got up from behind her desk and looked at Tony. "Tony, one of the attackers is looking for you." "Looking for me?" Tony's face showed suspicion, and he said, strangely, "Could it be that I caused trouble before?" "All right." From Obadiah the Iron Overlord, to the Whiplash, to Killian. Tony feels that the rest of his life is wiping his ass for the first half of his life. What a disgusting metaphor. Little Pepper was also unsure, and said, "I don't know, but that girl has another very fast ability, and everyone has been rescued. It may have been captured." Accompanied by the news of the attack on the Theater of Mage. The mysterious Flash Man also appeared on the front pages of major media. Everyone was wondering if this Flash Man who suddenly appeared was another new vigilante. "Natasha, what do you think of that Flash Man? Is he a new vigilante, or a villain?" Fury asked Natasha, who was back in the Tricurved Wing building. "Flash Man, that's a really ugly name." Natasha couldn't help but complain after hearing the name. As for whether it is friend or foe, she cannot give a reasonable answer. Supposedly, because Flash Man appeared and saved everyone, he should be a friend. But he took the witch and another person, which is difficult to judge. Fury complained about Natasha's name, Flashman, saying, although it looks like a non-physical light, you can clearly see the hair, don't you? One of our agents said, people with hair look more like people. Coulson had a bitter face. It was this sentence that he was deducted for half a year's bonus, because he walked into the office first with his left foot. Texas, the ancestral home of Hank the Beast. Charles temporarily requisitioned here. Anyway, it has been abandoned for many years, and no one has lived in it for a long time. Because Texas is close to Mexico, this place is not particularly safe. The advantage is that the people are fierce. Both S.H.I.E.L.D. and the CIA are weak in this state. Wanda and Quicksilver followed Charles, looking up at the dilapidated old mansion. After they learned that Charles had no malicious intent, the twins had let their guard down. Mainly have not experienced social danger, the twins are still relatively simple. Baron Strack is fooling this aspect, mainly driving Wanda and Quicksilver with hatred, but there are actually many flaws. None of them require psychiatrist guidance. Just calm down and they can figure it out for themselves. Just like a knife seller, someone bought his knife to do bad things. Do you want to go to the knife seller to take revenge? Are we going to live here in the future? Quicksilver curiously touched the globe in the living room with his hand, and the globe that was overwhelmed by time, one end fell off, anti-wolf, rolled from the table to the ground. Apparently this place is really old enough to fall into disrepair. Quicksilver was about to say something when Wanda tugged at his arm. Let's just clean it, this place is very good, isn't it? Thank you Charles, for providing us with a place to stay. Wanda's character is like that. It's a bit of a receptivity. That's it in Avengers. She rarely expresses what she likes and doesn't like. Anyway, how to arrange, she will do it. It doesn't matter what you like. But the hemp rope is specially selected and broken, and bad luck is specifically looking for the bitter man. As a child, Wanda lost her parents. Reduced to Hydra's combat tool. Just seeing the light of a new life, Quicksilver Pietro left her forever. Out of the shadow of losing your brother. Have a relationship. Vision died at the hands of Thanos. The Heavenly Sword Bureau even disassembled him. In Westview Township, Wanda uses the power of chaos magic to create a happy life. Finally, for the people who are controlled by the whole town. Choose to watch Vision and the two children disappear with their own eyes. Tragedy continues to play out on her, eventually causing Wanda's emotional breakdown and complete blackening after receiving the Book of Darkness. Cleaning is actually very simple. Charles waved his finger lightly and said, recovery as before. I saw that all the dilapidated things in the room began to be constantly restored. A bookcase that has been broken. The broken wood chips were returned to their places, and the books scattered on the ground were rearranged in the bookcase. The collapsed wooden staircase was leveled again. The globe that had just been touched off by Quicksilver flew back onto the stand. Everything in this old mansion is flying back and forth in an orderly manner. The magical picture in front of them made the twins unbelievable and breathtaking. Wanda, this is the power of magic, and your chaos magic can do the same. We can use magic to facilitate our lives, not the simplest use to flatten something. Charles said to Wanda. Wanda, sorry. Pinch something, isn't that what she does? What a shame. At this moment, Charles held Wanda's cold little hand. Wanda's body tightened, but he felt the temperature of Charles's palm, but he did not take it back. Here, you can try to feel the trajectory of magic. Clean up. After the room was restored, Charles used a cleaning charm to clean up the dust of the years. The power of this white magic comes from eternity. Presumably, the eternal boss will not care too much about cleaning with magic. Episode 49. Charles temporarily placed Wanda and Quicksilver in Texas. At the same time, a plan was made. It is to find something for the twins to do a little, and put out the reward for the white prostitutes, by the way. Certainly before doing so. One more thing. He had to make a trip to the 3 Curved Wing building in Washington. Thinking of this, Charles arrived in Washington with a phantom transfiguration. Although flying at the speed of shining fruit can also be reached quickly, it is certainly not as easy and convenient as magic. The magic power of this phantom transfiguration magic was borrowed from the Emperor of Vishan. Take magic to catch up with your own way, thinking that Emperor Weishan is not a stingy god. Fury was reviewing the documents he was visiting on his desk. It is a review of the personnel list of the satellite launch program. It looks like just an ordinary satellite launch. Its significance is known to only a few people throughout S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Security Council. The launch of this satellite is related to the entire InSight plan behind. Therefore, an ordinary list of launch missions requires Fury to look at it personally. Right at this moment, Fury suddenly looked out the window. I saw a yellow light appear outside the floor-to-ceiling window. The next moment, the light converged in his office. Looking at the intact window, Fury frowned and asked, "How did you get in?" "All the glass of the 3 curved wing building. They are the most expensive bulletproof glass ordered from the military-industrial group. As we all know, glass does not block the propagation of light," Charles said. Fury stopped talking, secretly assessing the meaning of this sentence. Glass cannot block the propagation of light. But people who can block the entity. Unless this flash person can be completely as ubiquitous as light. Very scary ability. Squeak. Hill pushed the door into the office, and she came to report to Fury. After seeing the flashman in the office, Hill was a well-trained agent and pulled out his weapon in less than a second. Fury made a stop gesture at her. He said, "Hill, put the weapon away. I think Mr. Flashman must have something to find me. You can make us 2 cups of coffee if you can." "Director Fury, you don't need to test me, that doesn't make sense." Charles laughed. "What does it mean to make 2 cups of coffee?" Fury is still evaluating his abilities. Seeing that the intention was recognized, Fury did not care, and the dark face had always used to hide emotions. "Mr. Flashman, S.H.I.E.L.D. wants to commend you for what you did in New York. If you didn't take 2 people. To be honest, I didn't find their identities in the S.H.I.E.L.D. system. I am here for them, and I need S.H.I.E.L.D. to revoke their wanted and get 2 identification documents by the way," Charles said. "For people with superpowers, it doesn't matter if they have proof of identity. Wolverine Rogan's old-fashioned identification card dates back to the Vietnam War. But for people, it's very important. This means whether you can integrate into the social population." Charles didn't want Wanda to be a withdrawn, detached person. That was not conducive to her control of emotions. Avengers made such a mistake. The Avengers base, where the environment is superior, the scenery is beautiful, and the equipment is complete, but it lacks the human touch. For Tony, Iron Man is work and Stark is life. For Team USA, it is difficult for him to fit into this era. But his iron will not bother him in this regard. Natasha and Hawkeye, as secret agents, are old churros. Only Wanda is a little girl. All of them ignore Wanda's need for affection. Fury said with a cold face, "What if I say no?" Charles expected him to say this. "Do you know how many kilometers per second the speed of light is, Director Fury?" Without waiting for Fury to answer, Charles said to himself. Light can travel at 300,000 kilometers per second, while the circumference of the Earth's equator is 40,000 kilometers. In other words, I can go around the equator 7.5 times in 1 second. Then, ask Director Fury to calculate how long it will take me to kill the people of Washington? Charles was slow and flat. But the most bland language speaks the most contrarian words. Hill felt like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood presented in front of his eyes. A bone-chilling chill spread throughout his body. Fury's expressionless face was finally not expressionless. He stood up angrily, his body trembled slightly, but he did not dare to say another word. Because he has seen the abilities of the Flashman. Under the speed of light, let alone attack. Even if you walk through Independence Avenue without any scruples, you don't know how many people will die. To be a super-capable person without the constraints of law, morality, and conscience. Even Fury, who is the king of agents, can only bow his head and submit. Well, identification is not difficult, but to revoke the wanted, I need time to convince the Security Council. An hour, 2 things I'll give you an hour of. Charles didn't give Fury a chance to bargain. Shit takes time. Bruce Banner can do much more damage than twins. S.H.I.E.L.D. is just as capable of pacifying it. Episode 50. An hour later, Charles got his identity from Fury, and it was like a ray of light disappearing instantly. Speed is not to mention that it cannot be captured by the naked eye. Even the surveillance can't be filmed. The speed of light propagation has exceeded the limits of monitoring equipment. Hill, please contact the Icebox prison, I need a statistic on the abilities of mutants. Fury said after withdrawing his gaze. The Icebox prison is Eagle Sauce's largest mutant prison. Jailed are all mutant criminals. Because the mutant registration bill has not yet been introduced, the most detailed statistics on the abilities of mutants are: one is the Mutant Research Institute, and the other is the prison. Hill nodded, then asked, "Do you think that Flashman will be a mutant?" "Such a powerful mutant, he is at least alpha level, comparable to Professor X and Magneto. Personal intuition, but I expect him to better not. If that's the case, the problem of mutants is even greater. I don't know what step Dr. Worthington Kurt's mutant healing potion has been studied." Charles first returned to Hell's Kitchen, opened his phone, and saw Gwen complaining to himself about being reported by George about the tour. that's right. In order to keep Gwen away from the scumbags, George quoted Gwen a high-priced, 15-day group tour of Europe. After returning, the State Imperial University just opened. Pity the hearts of the parents of the world? Charles shook his head and shook the thought out of his mind. Poor fart. Who will pity themselves? Will there be Venice on this trip? Charles asked, typing. After receiving Gwen's affirmative reply, Charles fell into deep thought. Does this start the Mysterio plot? Forget it, leave this alone. Mysterio doesn't threaten Gwen anyway. Besides, he was still standing behind Gwen, and when Gui and Odin didn't make a move, the others hit casually. After a few words to Gwen to stay safe, Charles contacted Jessica again to ask if she had time to travel together. Jessica knew he was a mutant thing. It doesn't hurt to know a little more. At this time, Jessica is in Brooklyn, and she is protecting her sister Tracy. Tracy is a stand-up comedian who recently received death threats for satirizing people of the same sex. Hi Charles, I'm in a boring talk show theater. I don't know what's so nice about this thing. Jessica clutched the microphone with her hand and whispered. Now Jessica protects Tracy 24 hours a day, including her daily performances. I think a lot of people like to say sarcasm in a humorous tone, but I prefer a talk show with satirical farming tools. Ironic farming tools. Then it's not as simple as receiving death. Jessica rolled her eyes. When Charles asked if she had time, Jessica certainly wanted to go. But this side really can't go away. That death threat didn't look like a joke. Because there were stand-up comedians last year, they received the same death threats. He was later stabbed to death at home. That case became an unsolved case, and the Brooklyn Police Department has not solved it to this day. After taking care of things on New York side, Charles uses the Phantom Transfiguration and comes to Texas again. Wanda sensed that Charles was back and rushed down the stairs happily. Charles, I thought you wouldn't be here in a few days. Wanda, wearing a red dress, has a happy face. She already knew that Charles was the headmaster of a mutant school and opened a psychology clinic in Hell's Kitchen, and it was normal for him to not have time for her. How come? Don't forget that I promised to take you on a trip. You used chaos magic to make a vigilante? Great way. Charles discovers the magical energy flowing through the air. Apparently, Wanda created it after watching him use magic. It's a blessed creativity. When the plasticity of chaos magic, combined with this creativity, God knows how many things can be made. With Charles's approval, Wanda almost jumped with joy. This kind of praise and recognition, which is not mixed with anything, is the first time Wanda has experienced it after losing her parents. She was with Baron Strack. It has also been praised. And that kind of praise, she could feel it. It was Baron Strack out of appreciation for a weapon. Time came to the next day. Charles prepared an RV and put Quicksilver Pietro in charge of driving. Although Pietro does not have a driver's license. But in a country where eagle sauce is known as a wheel, it is really not an exaggeration to say that everyone can drive. With Baron Strack, Quicksilver drives several combat vehicles, including tanks. Driving an RV doesn't bother him at all. As for Charles and Wanda, of course, they sat leisurely in the back, drinking coffee and chatting and enjoying the comfort of the journey. The first stop on their trip was an orphanage.